Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas. Today I'm very, very delighted and thrilled and excited that we'll be sharing some of the important aspects of immigration with the help of someone who has reached out to you with his partner Michael Fulwani, and today he comes by himself for various reasons, and one reason relates to his willingness to extend his congratulations for his partner attorney Michael Fulwani. But there is much more that we'll be learning from David Nachman, who is not just serving the community as an immigration attorney. He's also sharing this knowledge of immigration at some colleges, at some workshops. So what is it that he'll share with us? We'll find out from him. First of all, lots and lots of thanks for joining us today, and welcome.
Namaste. Thank you so much. Namaste. Adab, Sat Sri Akal. Nice to see you, Ashok. Always a pleasure.
So before we get to the real subject, which is immigration, you have been to India many times, I am aware. Tell me, what are your impressions of India and anything that you are reminded of when you think of India?
I always enjoy traveling throughout the country and getting to see how the country of India is not just one culture, but it's a mixture of many cultures. And I love to see that because that same concept as a template is sort of a diverse, it's a concept that we have here in the United States, that we have so many different cultures here in the United States, which when they all meld together, it all seems to work. And in India, it's the same way. Everything seems to work. So when I'm in the South, I have this one completely distinct culture down in the South in Chennai. When we're in the North, when I'm in Rajasthan, when I'm in Gujarat, all different cultures, but they all seem to mesh together and work. So that's a wonderful thing. So it's a concept of diversity, which is brought sort of to the forefront.
Okay, now let's talk about you. And when you are a student, there are various ways that you can think about designing your life, but you chose to be in the field of immigration. Was there any role model that sort of pulled you towards this?
Well, actually not really. And if I always enjoy telling my clients or potential clients a little bit about my history, which is that from a career standpoint, my career took me in a very different direction. I actually started out as a corporate and business attorney. I started doing securities work. I was doing 34th and 33 Act reporting. I was doing private placement memoranda. I was doing corporate and business work. Of course, that corporate and business work is what I bring to the table when I'm sitting with my business clients, and I'm able not just to help them to bring their foreign businesses to the United States, but also to help them to work their way through things like shareholder agreements, work their way through asset purchase agreements. And I believe that one of the things that's been tremendous, especially with, we've been doing a lot of new company Ls, where we've been helping businesses come from India to the United States and bring their businesses as affiliates and subsidiaries here to the States, is to help them to do deals and to help them understand what the implications of those deals are. So that's been a tremendous value that we can bring, something that I have back from a practice which I was doing even before I was doing immigration practice.
So immigration practice somewhere helps you in rubbing shoulders with who's and who, or you get to work with celebrities, and your company with attorney Michael Fulwani, you guys have helped many Bollywood celebrities also be a part of American experience, either to shoot or in some other ways. And recently there was a special recognition which came towards Mr. Michael. Share your experience of being a part of IFA.
The IFA Awards ceremony. Actually, the IFA Awards was just about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and we were. If I look tired, it's because I am. I think that I feel kind of like the people who attended IFA at the MetLife Stadium. It was a very very, very long program. It went, actually, you know how these programs go, and it was...
You wait a lot.
It was, it was, Thursday night we had the press meeting in the Sheraton in New York. And then on Friday we did IFA Rocks, where A.R. Rahman did a concert. It was just incredible till 3 in the morning. And then we had the film awards went on Saturday night from about 8 o'clock, where we did the green carpet beforehand, and then that went till about 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was just a tremendous weekend here in New York. Obviously, IFA being in New York was just an incredible thing. The fact that it's never been in New York before, and we have just a tremendous community here of folks who love Bollywood, love to see the stars. It was so nice to be at the Sheraton and to see all the people lined up to see the stars, and it's just really nice to see everyone so out there for the community and for Bollywood. So it was great. And Michael at the press conference received an award for his contribution to Bollywood. He, of course, has been doing Bollywood. He's been doing Bollywood visas for almost 35, 40 years. And so it was just a wonderful thing that he was able to be recognized for his service to the Bollywood community. So it was wonderful.
So Bollywood glamour and larger than life. From that point, I'm reminded of our president, who has also been a part of the glamour world through beauty pageants, as well as his very popular real TV show, You Are Fired. Now, when he is president, people are looking at him with mixed feelings, and many people are apprehensive as to how his policies are going to play out for immigrants.
And just this week, we announced a historic immigration bill to create a merit-based green card system that ends the abuse of our welfare system, stops chain migration, and protects our workers and our economy.
Things are going to be changing for travel to the United States, things that are going to be changing with regard to initiatives that affect businesses in the United States and business travelers. And I guess finally we want to talk a little bit about the predictions of what potentially lies ahead with regard to where we might be going. And obviously immigration, unlike in the past, is in the news every day, and everyone, especially in the Indian community and the in the Eastern community, everyone wants to know what's going on. So,
if I may ask you to elaborate, when you say it's going to be different when you travel to America, and people travel in different visa categories, so which category will find it, call it more inconvenient, if I may ask?
And one of the things that we've certainly found is that there's been an increase in and a focus on national security, of course, and there's an increase also in identity, knowing the people who are traveling. And these are things that are going to affect visa processing at the U.S. consulates abroad, not just in India or Bangladesh or Pakistan or Sri Lanka, but everywhere in the world we're starting to see it. And one of the things that we're letting our clients know, and we're trying to get out to our clients, we do it by email, by sending them newsletters. I think you probably receive our newsletter, is that things are changing security-wise. We're finding that there are more administrative processing cases under 221G. Some of these cases where an individual goes to process a non-immigrant visa at the U.S. consulate abroad, they're finding that their cases are being put into administrative processing. Sometimes that's being done because the U.S. consulate has to vet these cases through appropriate databases. The president announced in March that there are going to be changes to the security methodologies that are being used by the government. They've implemented a new DS form, which needs to be filled out by individuals who have potential issues, where there's a drill down, as there are more specific questions about people's backgrounds. For example, now what they're doing is they're vetting very, very heavily individuals with fiancé visas, K-1 visas. Obviously, we've had a couple of incidents here in the United States where individuals have been involved in terroristic activities where they had come in as a fiancé, and as a result of that, there's a focus on that. I think that there's still ripple effects from 9/11 where those individuals who came into the United States came in on F-1s, and so obviously there's an increased security a focus on the F-1s and the Js and the Ms. So I think that is still a ripple effect from 9/11. And what's really interesting is that back in January, when the president announced the first executive order, and a lot of people sort of missed this, because obviously these executive orders have taken all types of twists and turns, as you know, where they've been challenged and there are injunctions in the federal courts, which ultimately ended up at the Supreme Court, which recently decided that the travel ban holds with the exception of the fact that if an individual has a quote-unquote relationship, whatever that means, to the United States, they would be able to travel. So we're still trying to figure out what that means. But now we know that grandparents are okay for a relationship. Back when they announced the first executive order, there was a provision in the first executive order which talked about revamping the National Security Council and the national security methodologies. So I think early on in the administration, and with regard to its own initiatives, they sort of set the roadmap, and they're saying we want to focus specifically on national security and making sure that databases, which before didn't necessarily read each other, now they want to make sure that those databases are speaking to each other. And I think that was probably one of the things that happened when Donald Trump got into office. He probably sat down with his national security people who were all sitting around the table, and they were, just like in any large corporation, as you know, there's always a battle for resources. Everybody has their own little domain, and they all want to protect that little domain. And I think what he did was he realized, and he's a businessman, so he knows in all of his businesses that the business people around him are all protecting their own little domains. And they're not sharing information because information is power. So I think that what he has in his bag of tricks, if you will, is that he wants to ensure that there is good communication, good security, and good cross-fertilization between these various administrative agencies to ensure that everyone's on the same page. And even after 9/11, I don't think we saw that happening a lot. And I can tell you as an immigration practitioner from time to time, we do see that one administrative agency sometimes doesn't pick up something that another administrative agency should be picking up. Or we'll put in an application and maybe something that we know about might not get picked up. And it's always a little troubling to me sometimes that that's not picked up. Obviously in the interest of full disclosure, we always say to our clients, you have to say everything. But sometimes these things are not picked up. So I think that there's...
So if I read you, I hear you, what you're saying, it goes to suggest that the working of present president is smart in some ways.
Exactly.
Which goes contrary to the image that we are getting about him from various sources. But then here's another question which also relates to what you just mentioned, which is more flow of information between different departments. And then the question of sanctuary cities, and we are sitting in New York, and there are certain provisions which may gradually trickle down to bother immigrants here in this state as well as some other states. So on that front, as an immigration attorney, anything that you perceive which might be relevant for someone to learn in advance?
Well, I'm glad you raised sanctuary cities because, as you know, what's going on right now with Texas, I think it's called SB 4, where they passed a law in Texas which says specifically that they're going to withhold funding from any city. So they're saying basically in Texas that if you decide to be deeming yourself a sanctuary city, we're not going to be giving you funding. And for that reason, many professional organizations have not been going to Texas and planning their events in Texas. They're actually pulling out of Texas and going to other states. So the sanctuary city is this whole issue of sanctuary cities is very it's very poignant. It's obviously something that is being brought to the forefront. Here's the thing. Bottom line is, and I think that all of my colleagues in the community, you know this. I'm not here to tout illegal immigration. We're not about illegal immigration. But everyone is in favor of legal immigration. And there are ways that we can legally immigrate people, even if they're out of status. There are options for individuals who are out of status. I see probably a good number of people on a weekly basis, as do my law partners, Michael Fawani and Ludka Zimocek. We all meet with people who are not, they don't have status. But we go through the various questions with them if they're out of status, and we try to figure out whether there are options where they can legally immigrate to the United States. So we're not, I think that the federal government is sending a message that they're not in favor of illegal immigration, and I think that that's the whole discussion about the wall and the $1.6 billion, that was $16 billion that they want to allocate to build the wall. That's about illegal immigration, but we as immigration lawyers, we favor legal immigration, and the question becomes for us to use our creativity to help individuals legally immigrate to the United States. And that's right. And so sanctuary cities, I think, are a form of condoning illegal immigration. That's the problem, I think. And that, I think, is the message that the federal government is sending, is we don't want to condone illegal immigration. We don't mind legal immigration, but we can't condone illegal immigration. So I think that's what lies at the heart of that issue.
So I think that's an important issue, and sometimes there is so much happening on the news headlines which may or may not actually affect a common man. And talking from the point of immigration, we still see people are interested in coming to America, though there is some difference as far as student visa is concerned because of the policy of the present government. So if there is a parent out here whose kids are maybe in India for various reasons, or somebody's relatives are in India, anything which has changed in last couple of months which they should know if they apply for a student visa?
Also a great question. It's always a pleasure to interface with you, because the questions you ask are so they're so in the minds of the people who we deal with on a daily basis. It's really perfect. So when I go to India, and that probably, as you know, we meet with, we call them agents, for lack of a better way to describe them, who are interfacing with international student officers at academic institutions throughout the United States. And they're trying, of course, to bring the best and the brightest to the United States. Obviously, academia in the United States is tremendously expensive, and it's not for everyone. But there are folks who are obviously going to benefit greatly from that. The changes that we're seeing, as I mentioned before, are that these cases are being vetted. There's a lot more security going on about the people who are coming on student visas. So we're seeing a large number of these cases ending up in 221G administrative processing. It's very frustrating to our clients when their cases are put into administrative holds, because the U.S. Department of State, which is the organization that's responsible for the U.S. consulate offices outside the United States, they can't give you a timeline. So oftentimes, we as immigration lawyers spend a good deal of time sending communications to the consulate. As you know, when Michael and I go to India, one of the things when we travel around the country, as I was mentioning before, we go to all the U.S. consulates. We've been to Hyderabad, we've been to Chennai, we've been to Mumbai, we go to New Delhi. We meet with the consular officers there and try to get a lay of the land and understand what the new procedures are. It's also tremendously helpful to us to know, who the people are who are making the decisions, what their thought processes are. And also, there's a level of communication which I think is very important to let them know that we're just trying to do the best that we possibly can for our clients, and we're acting in a way as a buffer for them, so that when individuals reach out, they're reaching out for us, and we are taking the cases or the information to the consulate as opposed to the individuals barraging the consulate. So it's very helpful.
Many times people feel that things are very much clearly available online, and if they file their own visa petition, vis-a-vis hiring an attorney, why don't we save some money? Why should we pay to immigration attorney? Those kind of questions. And some people have done it. They said, I filed for my father, he's
Right.
here now. So now, what would be your take on this space?
Well, for those of the members of the community who have watched Michael and I on ITV in the past, you'll know that our position always is that we encourage our clients to try to do it on their own. There are some things, though, that they should not be doing on their own. For example, I don't suggest an individual do an H-1B on their own. I think that H-1Bs,
Why not?
Well, I think H-1Bs they've grown very complex. I think that, and actually that sort of brings me to sort of the next element of, the things that I wanted to talk about is how things are going to be changing for businesses in the future. So for example, one of the things that you have to do before you can get an H-1B done is you have to do what's called a labor condition application. The labor condition application is a Form 9035 that's filed with the U.S. Department of Labor. Now, for years, the 9035 has always allowed us as immigration lawyers or individuals who are doing LCAs on their own to be able to strike the prevailing wage. The problem is, I think that now what they're going to do is the government's going to change it, and the government's now going to strike the prevailing wage as they do in the PERM labor certification process. So when we do a labor certification for the green card for someone, the government tells us what the prevailing wage has to be. We can't tell them. So I think what we're going to start to see, and this is sort of a crystal ball view going out maybe another 6 months or so, I think we're going to start to see that the government is going to want to tell us what the prevailing wage should be in the H-1B context, as opposed to us telling the government what we feel the prevailing wage should be. And I think that the reason for that is that, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of abuse, where what's happening is a lot of the information technologies companies are using level 1 prevailing wages for 6 full years. Now, common sense would dictate that if an individual has experience in the field, that their wages should be going up. That would make sense. So to have a flat line wage for 6 years, it doesn't make too much sense. And I think that what we're going to start to see is that this new administration, I think, is going to send out individuals to do audits of these businesses where there has been consistent flat line of wages for the full 6 years. And even more so, because obviously, for example, as many of our viewers know, under AC 21, you get the 7th year extension, the 7th year, 8th year, 9th year, especially with Indian backlogs. Potentially these folks could be in H-1B status waiting for their green card with backlogs from India for something like 10 to 12 years. So then the question is, what are the wages going to be for those 10 to 12 years? If you say to me that those wages are going to be level 1 wages for 10 to 12 years, that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. So I think the federal government is picking up on those abuses.
In the respect of time, if we talk a little bit about business immigration, which I thought is important, and all these issues related to more security check and making sure that proper funds come to America for anybody to do business. So has there been some basic change in terms of the way business immigration visas were issued?
Well, in terms of the visas themselves, what we're finding is that we're getting a lot of resistance on the cases that we put forth, which to us are very good cases. We're putting forth what we consider to be very straightforward H-1Bs. We're receiving back what are called RFEs, requests for evidence, where we have to demonstrate that the individual is a professional in a specialty occupation, which is a term of the art, and the government is asking for us to prove that the individual has the equivalence of a baccalaureate degree or or its equivalent. So that's a very basic thing. It's very frustrating to get these RFEs, and sometimes our clients don't wholly understand why the government is issuing it. Within the L1 classification, which is we're doing a lot of new company Ls where we're bringing foreign affiliates or subsidiaries or foreign businesses to the United States to be able to grow here. We're getting also a tremendous number of RFEs, but just outright denials. And it's interesting because what we're finding then is when we take those cases and we refile them, they're getting approved. So it's kind of once a case is denied, you have a couple of different ways in which you can go. Not each way is for everyone because everyone has different circumstances, but sometimes you can refile, sometimes you can make a motion for reconsideration, and sometimes you can appeal. The problem is appeals take forever, motions go back to the same officer. So oftentimes what we'll do is we'll try to refile the case, and so then when the case goes back for refiling, oftentimes it gets approved. So we have to prepare our clients and we have to prepare the folks who are doing these cases for being able to be what I call persistent. So when we sit with our potential clients, we often explain to them that they have to be in for the long haul and for the good fight. And we say, as long as you're willing to stick with it and be persistent, at the end of the day, things will gel for you.
So I am delighted and I am happy that I am sitting with David Nachman, who is immigration attorney, of course, and he's managing attorney of NPZ law firm. We just have a minute for us to conclude. Time flies, as they say, when you have meaningful and interesting conversation. So someone who is preparing to file any kind of visa and they want to approach you or any other attorney, any tip that you may want to give to people who are potentially going to be in this stage where they file in terms of keeping their documents, and in what way one should be prepared before going to meet an attorney?
Well, it's also a great question. Thank you. One of the things I think that's really important, which we're telling our clients and have always told our clients, I think, again, for the viewing audience who know and have listened to Michael and I on ITV in the past, we always say, save your documents, put them in a safe place, put them into a safe if you can, put them into a safety deposit box, put them someplace where they're not going to get lost. Oftentimes new programs come around where you have to show documents. For example, if you're doing a 245I case and you're doing a filing under 245I, it's very important that you have documents to demonstrate your physical presence back in 2000, the year 2000. So back in December of 2000, you have to prove you were physically in the US. And a lot of people don't have that documentation. I recently had a case with a family from Trinidad and Tobago who actually had all of their documents. And they said, thank you so much for telling us on television to keep all of our documents. And so they did, and it was very helpful for their case. Another thing that's really important is tell your immigration lawyer everything. Don't try to hide information from them, because it's better for us to get that information and to deal with it, because if we don't have the information and we get blindsided later on, then that can be used against you. But if we have the information ahead of time, we're able to go into the books, do the legal research, and figure out how that information can be marshaled in favor of the case, as opposed to it being a deficiency in the case. I wish everyone, obviously, a very happy Independence Day, and it kind of gives you a thought back the same way as it does for Americans back to July 4th, when that's the Independence Day in America, when we separated from the British, and so obviously it holds the same place in the hearts of Indians. I think that that is the time when India became one as a whole and was able to separate and become independent. So.
Wonderful. Yeah. So each individual is important, and we collectively help each other in the light of the new developments that are happening. There is more awareness and more information needs to be disseminated. I really thank you for joining us today and helping us in this direction.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Ashok. Always a pleasure.
Wonderful to have David Naquin, thanking him and thanking all of you for being with us with lots of good wishes. This is Ashok Vyas.